I took a sip at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Peter Webby's back
Straight
again.
up.
He's back again. We had a full 5-second countdown, and I decided to drink at 3 seconds. That's where we are. Welcome back. You are the first. There's admittedly quite a limited amount of people on the podcast so far, but you are also the first person who is going to be have their second appearance on here.
It's exciting for you though. You've had quite a few ones lined up, haven't you? You've been going for it.
It's been. I think it's. I like to call it the Peter Webby effect. I don't know if you're aware of that. Basically, if you can get Webby on board, the rest of the content creators come flooded in. I've realised this thing about you that if I'm over complimentary to you, or if I put any kind of onus on you as a trendsetter or a kind of leader of the pack, you immediately shrink into kind of a tiny ball of anxiety.
I hate it. I'm all about, like I'll tell everyone else how amazing they are and I'll build other people up. But the moment someone's like, yeah, you do amazing, like, whoa, no, thank you.
I mean, for the next hour or so, basically I've found your weakness. And so for the next hour or so, that's what we're going to be exploiting.
Oh, crikey.
I think we finished off last time. We went through kind of the history of Peter Webby and how you'd ended up where we are, and I think I jumped into your live stream afterwards, and you said, I felt like we could have talked for hours about content. There's loads of things that you kind of go back and say, I wish I'd have said this, I wish I'd have said that, and actually it's an interesting time to talk to you because I feel like just over even though it's only been a couple of weeks, so much has changed. So much has developed with you. Just the past couple of days have been a pretty crazy time for you in terms of live streaming. So shall we start there then? I mean, what's happened? What's the past couple of weeks been like? I feel like every week I hear from you has been big news.
I mean, So what's funny is that on in the little management chat I've got in my Discord with all of my moderators and my mod team, I've asked them to, because at the end of every month I wanted to do like a little monthly highlight thing of like everything that's happened in the month, and so just as and when things happen I wanted them to just sort of put it in this channel. And just looking back through it for the last month, it's just mental. So like more recently, I guess since Sunday, so we're talking 3 days of streams. We've done about 3,500 followers in 3 days through Insane. 3 live streams, which is crazy. But I knew that it was going to go mental because I was the game that we were playing, That's Not My Neighbour, when it first came out. It went mental, and I think actually the last time I played that, I think that was another like massive stream where we ended up with nearly 1,000 followers in a stream.
Yeah,
and I've seen over the last over the last week or so, I guess, things start to slowly rise for it because it's got a new game mode that just came out about a week ago now. And I was like, okay, let's just sort of see where this goes. I don't know whether it's going to sort of increase or not. And then I just think I knew on Sunday I had to jump on it because that just looked like the perfect time to do it. And then it did. It just sort of worked. And I normally have a rule, and actually I've broken my rule this week because my rule normally is I never do the same game consecutively on 2 different streams. And after that one on Sunday, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to have to do something different tomorrow because I want people to make sure that, that they know that I'm a variety creator. I want to force it. I don't want people to then leave as soon as I stop playing this game. I was like, no, I'm just going to, whilst it's big, whilst TikTok's enjoying it, whilst it's there, let's just go for it. Let's see how much we can do with it. And, then the last 2 days, it's been quieter, but still, I say quiet, and we got 250 followers yesterday. That's not quiet by any stretch of the imagination.
That's the risk, I think, is that you start being comparative to your very best days.
Yes, and every day's a new day. You can't, I knew after coming off the back of that Sunday one, I was like, right, I'm not going to see numbers like that for another month, and that's fine, right? But if there's little remnants there left of people that I can pick up, because I only stream for a short time as well. I think maybe sometimes I need to be better at, if the numbers are good, then let's just force another hour out of myself to keep it going. If I've got the energy there, if I feel like I can give it, then let's give it. But yeah,
I am fascinated by your schedule, and actually, not only am I fascinated by it, I've actually stolen it wholesale and taken it onto myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is, there's a funny thing that happens. Actually, this happens to me a couple of times. I think when you're a content creator, you inevitably end up in little groups of different content creators, and you're constantly, I will ask you for advice, I'll ask other people for advice, people might ask me for advice, just depending on where you are in the kind of pecking order of content creaters. Yeah. As we've already established, Peter, you are at the very top. Stop. And we're all looking at you in a kind of godlike fashion. I've stolen that wholesale, and this is a weird thing actually for content creators. 99.9% of the time, they are happy for anyone to steal what happens. If you're first to bat and you hit a home run, I don't know where that analogy's come from as a British man, but if you're the first one to figure it out, inevitably other people are going to take that, and I think you have to be in a space where you go, I'm happy for that to happen.
Absolutely,
But weirdly, lots of viewers have come to me. I've got friends where I said, I'm going to start playing this game because it works for me, it works for them. And I have viewers come in and go, you're copying this content creator. They're
funny.
Stealing your stuff, yeah. And it's happened a few times where that other content creator has actually been in the chat, and I've been like, he's my friend, and he's right here. But so I've stolen that wholesale because I fell into this trap of going, more equals more, which is a very kind of easy trap to fall into, and by that I mean, I was streaming every day from about 1 until 6 or 7. So I was doing 6-7 hours a day, and I was doing content in the morning. And I wasn't really hitting the numbers that I wanted to do. And then I spoke to you, and you were like, I stream 2-3 hours, 3 hours a day, I think it was. Yeah. It's something along those lines every day. And you were just like, I just chose something that I felt like I could commit to for the long term, and I stuck with that. But it really opened my mind. I think it's fairly unusual to have someone who does such short and kind of intense streams, but it didn't affect your numbers. It doesn't seem to affect your numbers at all. I'm just curious how you came to that decision, whether it's always been like that.
I think that is TikTok as a platform, though. I think with TikTok, your first 15 minutes are the biggest 15 minutes you can have. If you can get people in for those first 15 minutes, if you can get loads of interaction in there, then the viewership will come from it. Whereas on a platform like Twitch, I would argue that actually you only really start to build momentum from your second hour, third hour. Yeah. And so that lends itself to, well, I've got to stream for a little bit longer because I'm starting to build up traction now. Whereas with TikTok, within that first 15 minutes, TikTok's pretty much already decided where you're going to be. Unless something happens, at the hour mark where they go, all of a sudden you've got loads of interaction and they'll start piling more people into you. But that first 15 minutes is key. So because of that, with 2-hour streams, I know for a fact that for those 2 hours, even if I've had a really long day at work, I know for 2 hours I can just go for it. And even if I collapse at the end of it, I know that for 2 hours minimum, I can go 110% energy and just give it. Whereas the moment we start ticking into 2.5-3 hours, I can feel myself start to drop. Yeah. And I know that if I'm going to do a live stream, I want it to be high quality and that high energy the whole way through. If someone's going to come in, they're going to expect me to be high energy, and because that's the trap that I've built for myself now. That I have to be high energy.
It works for you, and I think we talked a little bit about this before, and I feel like we're on the same page with this. Is the live stream is a performance thing? It's a performance thing, and I think one of the things certainly that lots of viewers don't realise is that to a certain extent, it is an act and a performance that you're putting on, and that act may be this is me but slightly heightened, or this is me but slightly more
Yeah.
exaggerated. I mean, maybe you do dance around your house singing "Ya Ya Ding Dong" at
I
every
do
possible
dance around the
occasion.
house. I mean, yeah, my 2-year-old will attest to the fact that I dance around the house quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think like in any form of performance, in any form of anything, you have to dial it up another 10-20%, just because
Yeah.
you're, you just do, because even when you take a picture and someone says smile, if you were to smile like you would do just without someone pointing a camera at you, it's very, it's a very slight smile, maybe it's all very subtle, whereas when you're smiling for a camera, the big grin comes out, everyone say cheese. And I think that is kind of what you have to do when you're live streaming. Like if you go too over the top, people absolutely see through it, but I think it's you plus another 10-20% is what you have to give.
You talked to, just before we kind of move on from the you talked about that first 15 minutes of your live stream, talking specifically about TikTok here, because we've established that that's where your focus is, and the reasons for that. You talked about that first 15 minutes being the most important. How did you first of all, how did you kind of establish that as a theory, or was it something that you recognise yourself, and then what have you put in place to try and make that work in your favour?
I think that just comes from speaking to other creators as well, is where we first where I first started that, and just speaking to them, saying, okay, wow, you've got regularly 100 people in your live every single time, like how do you find that happens, because that works quite quickly, and more often than not, I found that the answer was that the amount of people that you have really in your first half an hour is kind of where you're going to sit roughly for those 2 hours, unless something crazy happens. And so it's like, okay, so if by half an hour TikTok's decided that's where I'm at for that live stream, what can we do in that half an hour to really sort of build that number up as high as possible to try and keep it roughly steady? So TikTok's always going to prioritize interactivity and watch time, just like any platform is. So I think to myself, right, how can I get people watching for more than the first 1 or 2 seconds before swiping away? How can I make sure that they're engaging with the tools that TikTok have? So, for instance, liking the live, gifting, sharing, commenting, all of these different things are what I don't know what the algorithm is, but I imagine TikTok sees all of these sort of, puzzle pieces together and goes, okay, this is what's going to make a good interactive live stream that are going to keep people on the app, because ultimately that's what they want, right? They want people to be on the app for as long as possible. So little things that I do, I immediately start the live straight away and start talking to people. I think people are still trapped a little bit into this starting soon screen that used to be very popular on Twitch, where you used to sort of load up your stream, have a starting soon screen that you went live for. I've never been a fan of those, just because I feel like I just want to welcome people the moment they come in. But and again, I've still seen a couple this week when I flick through some live streams. There's a couple of streamers that are using a starting soon screen on TikTok. Like you're just killing yourself off, completely killing yourself off. You're never ever going to get anywhere with that. And so I interact with people straight away. The moment they start coming in, I'm saying hello to them straight away. As you start to see the names come back again and again, I think what's really important is not giving them the same hello. It's not hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? It's like little bits that you find out about them through them being in your Discord server, through them just interacting with you. I tend to remember 1 or 2 bits of information about everyone, so that I can say, oh, lovely to see you from yesterday. You joined yesterday, didn't you? It's that kind of thing. Oh, well, blimmin' heck, he actually remembers me. I think that's like that personal touch that really helps. I try and get 5,000 likes before we start playing a game. And again, it's just that sort of that initial, as I'm saying hello to people, right, tap, 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 let's go. And again, that gradually builds more people in until we get to the 5,000, then we get started. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks or so, and that seems to have worked quite well. Yeah.
It's another thing on the list of things that I try to steal.
Don't call it stealing. It's just kind of like again, everything that I've ever done has been taken from inspiration from what I've seen.
I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun, and it's all about. I think you said this to me the other day. A rising tide lifts all ships. Is that
a rising tide raises all ships.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I think, and there are so many people on these platforms. I think you have to approach it from a place of abundance, of going, there is enough for anyone. Of course, Charm getting 10 extra viewers doesn't mean 10 less viewers for Peter. It's not usually.
This is what usually really annoy me about these people that were, there's. For instance, there was the whole phase of hot tub streaming on Twitch and that kind of thing, and there
I'm not
people
aware
getting
of that.
so
never seen those.
They were just so people got so angry about it. Saying, no, that's not what this platform's. Obviously, they can just get in a hot tub and get loads of views, and I've got none. Yeah. And it's like, look, the person that's on Twitch looking for a hot tub streamer is not then going to look for you if there's no hot tub streamers about. Like, you are not the person that they're looking for. So they're not stealing your views.
Let me look for this. I think I'll just move directly onto the bald guy playing.
Is it like they're on the platform for that reason, not to watch you? So that was really frustrating to see that all the time about, they can do this and just get loads of viewers. And as well, actually, those creators have actually worked really hard at building their brand around something else, right? Yeah. And that's and I think people are very quick to go, they've just found the easy route. I would completely disagree. I think actually that's quite a difficult route to take, and to try and have the confidence in yourself to be able to pull that off in a way that you're. And that's how you've built your brand around it. I think it's amazing. And
for sure. I mean, I would much rather be sat here playing video games and attempting to get into the niche of me taking my clothes off and getting a hot tub. Because
you're not actually allowed to do that anymore, so we won't be seeing any Charm hot tub streams anytime soon.
That's my future. I had it all planned out, but I suppose what I mean is, there's a niche for everyone. There's a space for everyone, and I think it's tempting to look at external factors about why you're not hitting the numbers that you're hitting, and actually continuing to do the same thing. And again, this is not I'm not pointing any fingers at anyone, because this is a trap that I fell into, where I said, going back to the stream length, is that I'd fallen into a trap where I was streaming more and not getting the results, and I wasn't actually changing. I was always trying new things, I was trying new videos, I was trying new games, all of that kind of stuff, but I wasn't changing anything in terms of the structure of the stream. And after speaking to you, I was doing those long streams and also complaining about not having enough time to do other stuff.
We've all been there.
Exactly. And after speaking to you, I went, well, you know what? I'll just half the amount of time I'm streaming. Instead of starting stream at 1, I started stream at 3, and I'd stream until 6. I'd be quite strict about that. So I created all this extra time, and I did that for a week, and then I looked at my stats, and the views were better. The stats were, and there's lots of variables here. There's lots of variables to talk about. But my point was, I streamed for half the amount of time, but my results didn't lessen. If anything, they got better. And that's continued kind of week on week that things have got better. And I've had much more time to produce long form content and more consistent short form content and all those things. So, I think sometimes the opposite of a good idea. This is something I got from my old advertising background. There's a guy called Rory Sutherland. He said sometimes the opposite of a good idea is also a good idea, and that's it's just because you're streaming longer doesn't necessarily mean that's going to get you results. And sometimes streaming shorter doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get
not at all. And actually, sometimes you do have to take a couple of steps back in order to launch yourself forward, because whenever I start something new, you are sort of starting from scratch again. You can get into a trap of, well, hang on a minute. Like, I know that if I go live, then I'm going to get X amount of, whatever. And you do have to sort of take that risk sometimes and go, well, if I do a little bit less, I might lose out on maybe, I don't know, a couple of extra subscriptions or whatever it may be, whatever you've got in your head that you think you're going to have. But in order to build something else that's going to be even bigger than that, you have got to split yourself a little bit sometimes.
Talking of building other things, I think we've talked quite a lot about your live streams and that aspect of your content creation. And they are wonderful things. They are incredibly interactive. They do draw you in. It's a really nice setup you've got, and a nice structure, and great interaction, great mods, great community. It's I think it's a real good. Your live stream is a really good kind of template for what a live stream on TikTok should be, if that makes sense. And I mean that in the nicest possible way.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's got a really nice structure around it, and I think people need to take those foundations and build their own house on top of it. But I think it's got really good foundations. But I also want to talk about that's kind of one aspect of being a content creator, I suppose. The other aspects are your kind of short form content that is either created or curated, and then after that, I also want to start to talk a little bit about long form content, which is, I know, something that you're kind of broaching at the moment. But let's talk about your kind of feed content, I would call it, your content that exists on your TikTok page. I think we talked a little bit about it last time in terms of, at the moment, it's largely curated from your live streams and kind of clipped up and edited. Is that where you see the future? Given infinite amount of time and resource, is that what you see your page being continually, or do you feel like there's things that you want to add to that element of your content strategy?
So I'm going to say something controversial, maybe. So I think I am quite lazy at posting short form content. Right. I've always wanted to be consistent with it, but I've never quite found what consistency is. I've always wanted to do one post a day, and I might do that for 10 days and think, I'm on a roll here. And then something will happen and I won't have had the time to clip something together, and then my whole brain goes into, you've missed a day now, and then I end up sort of sulking for a week before I then start to do it again. So I still need to try and find that consistency. 99% of the content that I have on there are clipped from the live streams that I do, and sort of good moments from that. I think because I suppose my number one product is my live streams rather than it being my short form content. And I think where some creators have their main product is their short form, and then they go live to then have a little bit more connection with their audience and their community, which arguably is the way it should be. I sort of do it the opposite way round, of my main product is my live streams and my interactivity, and then the short form content is a way of bringing people to that product, if you know what I mean. So I suppose that's how it has been. Do I want it to stay like that forever? Absolutely not. I think I need to be a lot better at being a little bit more diverse, and I want to start branching away from it not just being gaming related stuff, and I want to branch into a little bit more of sort of slice of life content, if you know what I mean, and a little bit more personality based around me. I have done a couple of videos here and there that like the occasional little Q&A. I've done I did a reacts video and sort of chopped that up, and they performed about the same as my normal videos did, which was promising. It didn't sort of see a massive drop off, but it's trying to find the time to do that. Now, I don't know whether this is a sort of psychological thing, but now that I've got this prompter, which, by the way, best bit of kit I've ever got in my life, like it's changed my life. Now that I've got that though,
what? Just 2 seconds, Peter. What brand would that prompter?
Well, that would be it would be the Elgato prompter. That is, a fantastic bit of kit.
The Elgato prompter, which was actually purchased and fully paid for by Peter.
It was, yeah. I haven't been given it.
But Elgato,
I wish.
If you're watching, and you, we all need a prompter in life sometimes.
No,
and we want that prompter to be Elgato.
No, honestly,
I'm going to clip that up and tag Elgato and see if I can get some.
No, it's genuinely the best bit of kit that I've purchased. I think the the best bit I think I've purchased is probably the camera that I've got. That was a sort of a big investment. But this, like, I've had my eye on it for a long time. It's been like, oh, wouldn't that be cool? But now that I've got it, and the last two, and we'll get onto long form later, but the last two long form videos that I've recorded, I've been so much more confident to be able to record it because I've done the script. It's there. I can read the script, ad lib around it, and then it's done. Whereas before, like with any other bit of content that isn't a clip from my live stream, I've gone to say something, and then by the time I've halfway through the sentence, I've forgotten what I'm going to say, and then I have to like go over, right, what was I going to say? Okay, yeah, fine. And then I'll start recording it, and then I'll stop record. I'll watch it back and go, that was absolutely not what I meant to be talking about in the first place. Like, why have I gone off on this tangent and sort of deleted the whole thing? And then all of that just takes time. And so I think that's why what stopped me from doing other forms of content. Yeah. But now that I've had it, like I've recorded two, I wouldn't say, long form being over a minute long, and shot horizontally rather than vertically. But I've recorded two YouTube videos now in the last week. That would never have happened before. So to be able to actually do that's really cool. And I think now I can drop into little things like bits of gaming news, for instance, like what's out this week. I can type out a quick script. I can have it up. I can go and just record that in under half an hour. That's just stuff I would never have been able to do before. So now that I've got it, the way that I'm justifying my purchase is by saying, well, I'm going to be able to make loads of content now. So if you don't see more content from me after this, then absolutely rinse me for it, because that means I've just splurged on a bit of kit that I don't actually end up using properly.
Yeah, and I think if that's the case, I think we should basically make a deal now.
Hold me accountable.
If you don't make enough content with that, Peter, I think the only possible thing that you could do is gift that prompter.
I knew that was coming.
Content creator.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, no, for sure. Like it's. I'm really confident that we're going to be able to create some really good stuff out of it. So watch this space, I guess.
Just on the prompter, and this is genuinely not an ad for the prompter, and I don't own a prompter. I've never used one, and I'll get onto that. And Peter did pay full price. It's not.
No. I've had it for just over a week now, and I've paid for it.
Just to get out of the way, because I think I feel like people feel like it becomes that. But my concern with the prompter is always that I go from being this dynamic, vibrant person that I am into someone that just suddenly becomes reading sentences off a page. And I know that's something other people have said with prompters before. They're concerned about it. Is that something that you found you had to get over when you did start using it, or did you find that you more used it as a guide that happened to be in front of you? Like, how are you actually using that in reality?
At the moment, the last two ones, I've done full scripts, and I've pretty much read from the script. Now, I don't know whether from my sort of performance background, I get over that quite quickly. Like, I can read a sentence and sort of know how to say it without looking like I'm just sort of reading the text. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just something that you just have to practice, really. Yeah. And I think once you actually get used to it, it's fairly good. I think the best thing about it so far, apart from the fact that I've been able to record content so quickly, is in live streams just actually being able to look at people whilst I'm talking to them. Like even now, right? You are on my prompter screen, right? So I am able to actually, I don't know how comfortable you feel about the eye contact.
No, I'm enjoying it.
But just having to be able to actually have a conversation with someone, because you're always either here or you're over here somewhere. You're trying to have a conversation with someone, but and then you're trying to watch someone to see what their reaction is to what you've just said, and then you end up doing this thing where you're and so just to be able to actually have a conversation and look at the person I'm talking to is amazing. But for streaming, I think it does add that extra layer of connection. I was really worried that everyone would be like, "Can you stop looking at me, please?" Because I feel like you're staring into my soul. So I was like, maybe that could be a byproduct of it, because you don't see streamers do it, but in YouTube you do see people looking straight down the barrel, right? So I didn't know what that would look like. There's been a couple of people who've gone, "I'm not sure I like it, but we're here for it." But I suppose because the game is here, that's where my main focus is. I'll then look over here to the chat. I'll then have a chat and then go. If the game was here and I'm there just like staring into it as I'm playing the game, that would be odd, right?
I think give that a go.
I mean, you could do it. You could absolutely have a game just there and just stare into the barrel whilst you're gaming. There might be a market for that. Who knows? But yeah, no, I think it's the ease of use. I think if the first couple of times you do it, it does look like you're reading off of it. It just takes practice.
Yeah, of course. Okay, moving on from the Elgato ad that we've just done.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I would recommend it.
Yeah, I would recommend Elgato send us some free stuff just for that. I think they've definitely got their money's worth. Tens of people are going to see this Elgato.
Hey, now.
No, so I mean, we kind of started to talk a little bit about your long form content, and I guess the big question mark over like why you're starting to produce that is that you're having great success in short form content, even if you are just clipping stuff up at the moment, and there's other things that you want to do. You know, you're having good success with your short form content. You're having phenomenal success with your live stream content on TikTok. So the question for me is why go into YouTube? Why is that something that you feel like that you need to do?
So I think at the moment where I'm at is it shouldn't just be about money, but ultimately, with the fact that I want to do this in a more full-time way, it does eventually have to be about money. At the moment, I only make money when I go live. Okay. Yeah. Now that relies on me being here, live streaming, 5 evenings a week. Now, at the moment, coming up to 30 years old, I can do that. That's doable. But I have to think of long term. In 10 years, 20 years, 30 years time, what does that look like? Now, there may well be, and I'm sure I said before to you when we were chatting, that there may be this wave of 60, 70-year-old streamers in 30 years' time that are just also creating content for the audience that suits them. But I don't know at those ages whether you can stream and keep that consistency and keep that level up. So I suppose the thought was then, okay, so how do I create something that outlives me in a way, and it sort of has I don't have to be live for it to give value to people, right? Yeah. So my first thought was, well, let's just do gaming stuff but on YouTube. But then there's already so many creators that do gameplay on YouTube that do it so well. And if I'm being honest, I was, after doing your podcast and getting to know you a little bit more, looking at some of the stuff that you're doing with your podcast and talking to creators, I was like, actually, that is something that I could look at. Not in terms of the podcast necessarily, but something that's away from gaming, but is still kind of attached. And especially over the last 2 months, I have been, lucky enough to be able to talk to so many creators and I love talking about TikTok. I love it. I could talk for hours about it. So I was like, well, why not? Because I do love helping people out. I do love, building people up and helping them be as successful as I can be. Why not, instead of just having these little off conversations everywhere, why not just put that knowledge into a channel on YouTube? So I've archived all of I haven't started a new channel. Now I'm going to see how this works. I don't know whether I should have started a new channel or not. I don't know. But I've archived all of my old videos on there, all of my gameplay videos. And I've essentially started again on the channel with this sort of TikTok streamer education branch that we're going to be looking at. Just did a little intro video on Sunday. Again, to try and keep myself consistent, I'm going to do 1 video a week. And then the aim for that would be if I can then chop that video into small little YouTube shorts, and that would be also good. But I suppose my vision for it is YouTube would be the place where if you are a creator and you want to not necessarily learn from me, but listen to my experience and try and maybe take some of those ideas for yourself and just see whether that works for you, that'd be the place to go. And if you then want to see that in practice, then you can go to my live streams and my short form content and that kind of thing. It's all going to be under the same name as well. I was like, I do want to create a separate channel with a different name, but I just think I'm just going to keep it all as the same name. It'll still be Peter Webby on YouTube, but that strand is going to be sort of this is how I do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. And the first video was great, by the way. It was nice to have a little intro, and it was interesting to see you going off in that direction. I think for me, my content on, again, I came to YouTube a little bit late. I think no matter what you do, no matter what order you do this, I think there's always a part of you that thinks I should have done that as well earlier. Or
oh my God! Like when I think I actually was like, I wish I'd done streaming in 2012. Just when I started uni, that would have been the perfect time. I had all the time in the world just to do it. I was like, oh God, I haven't done it. And then funnily enough, I looked at my, something popped up on an old Facebook memory, right? Yeah. That was like, literally was 12 years ago. Oh, I'm streaming this game on Twitch, if you like. I was like, why didn't I carry that on? Like, why did I decide to do it for that one time and then never did it again? Like, what was, like, why? But yeah, the second best time to start is today, right? Yes. You can always say to yourself, oh, yeah, I wish I'd started before. Yes, of course, but the second best time to start is today, so why not, right? And so, because otherwise, in a year's time, you'll go, oh, well, I could have started then. So just start now.
Definitely.
Why not?
And I think the interesting thing about the YouTube content for me is that, very, very kind of similar to what you've said, is that what I have now is something that is developed fairly organically. I started off with like gameplay clips and very similar. It's like everyone's doing this. And podcast stuff came about, and I think I've said this before, but this podcast came about because I was like, I want to speak to and learn from all of these different creators, and I think they've all got interesting stories. And I've done a lot of podcasting stuff in the past, and webinars and that kind of thing, so I felt like I'm comfortable in that space. I can talk to people on that level. So that came about from that. But I joke that it's the Peter Webby effect, but there is a grain of truth there that, and it's not. It's a case of me posting about talking to you and you then promoting that on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it these days. Actually, gave a certain amount of credibility to me as a person, and I suppose trust in me as a person. Oh, I know Peter, and Peter's spoken to him, so it's probably going to be okay. It's probably going to be all right. I do this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think as extroverted as creators are in many ways in this space, I think they are quite often fairly introverted people outside of this.
That's why these creator meetups, these creator events are so funny. Because
they're
you absolutely get all these people in a room that are just used to being like on their own.
It's like a school disco, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Which is why, actually, I think there has to be a bar. Any creator event, that doesn't have a bar, it's you end up, because you do just need that, little bit of confidence juice just to go, right, fine, let's make the most of it. Because you could very easily, when you go to one of these creator events, go there for the whole 3-4 hours and not talk to anyone, because actually there are, people. There are some, and I try and be that person that will just come and talk to people, like boom, like hello, I'm here. Whereas a lot of other people just sort of are waiting for that person to come over, and sometimes I imagine people don't. So you have to make the most of those things. But creators are definitely away from their performance. Do struggle to talk about what they do, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's been difficult with this, but genuinely after chatting with you, and actually, it's a mixture of chatting with you and putting myself out there on Twitter, which is a platform that I hadn't used from a creative standpoint. I had my own personal Twitter back in whenever it was, early days of Twitter, but never really considered that it was a platform for creators. But actually, it's jam-packed, filled with creators.
Absolutely.
You can't move for creators on the platform. They're all over the place.
Yeah, if you are a creator and you don't have we may as well just call it X now. It's actually x.com now, isn't it? They've changed everything. But if you don't have an X account, then you need to get one. Again, I'm also very aware that lots of people do this just because they find it fun, and actually that's okay. If you want to do this sort of seriously and you want to try and level yourself up, then absolutely X is the place to go to sort of make those connections and talk to other creators.
Yeah.
But it's,
I have to thank another creator for that actually, because it was a creator called Just Callan. She's a Scottish streamer. She's phenomenal. Another event, she spotted me there, and I'd been in her community for a bit, and she kind of took me under her wing a little bit and said, "Oh, come with me, and I'll introduce you to people." And she said, "Oh, I'll send you a whole list of like people who you should be connecting with and stuff." And that whole list was essentially a Twitter account, X accounts, and I was like, "Oh, okay, so they're all here." And then suddenly the floodgates open. But yeah, so this podcast grew organically out of that, and it's starting to build some momentum now, after getting some key kind of creators like yourself and some other people on. But then the other content is just about me pushing the boundaries. Like my diary started from me losing my job and going, all right, I want to talk really openly about what this process for me is like in terms of becoming a full-time content creator. And it kind of became a gradual thing from there, and then being outside in the real world and filming is just this scares me a little bit, so I should probably go and give it a go.
Yeah, I haven't made that. I'm not that brave yet. I want it. I've got all of the stuff. I've got the stuff to be able to do it, but like just, I'm safe in here.
Yeah, it is horrible. It is horrible. Like I said,
the shots are wicked though. Like when you're, your shot composition is like, it's amazing what a difference just having some green in the background makes, and just being like that and having natural light on your face rather than sort of, your studio lighting. It does make a huge difference. It really sort of adds to the authenticity, I think.
And I think my theory was, we talk quite a lot about this on TikTok specifically, is that people will keep scrolling and you need to stop them from doing that. And my theory was that gaming videos, generally speaking, you see environments like yours or environments like mine. It's purples, blues, neons, in a enclosed space, with a mic in front of them, with a light up here and a camera there. That's basically what you're seeing now. Is what all gamer videos were. And my theory was, hey, if I'm talking about gaming, but I'm doing it on a canal or in a forest or just somewhere that isn't in this room, is that going to make people stop for a second and go, hang on, these two things don't fit together? Like, what's going on? It's that I think content creator teachers would call it a pattern interrupt, something that makes you go, hang on, something's odd here, something's not quite right. Why is this guy talking about PlayStation 5 in a
yeah.
So yeah, that was that, and I think that was the theory for it. But there is no getting around the fact that it is awful, and you feel like everybody's watching you, and it is horrible to stand out in public and speak. And if you're doing some of those shots where you're quite far away, there's no one looking after your camera. So.
Yeah, that would always be the worry as well. Just going just looking around. No one's going to just run off with my tripod, are they?
Yeah. So you have to be prepared to get your running shoes on. But yeah, it's definitely, and I think that's one of the things that you have to get your head around as well as a content creator. Is I always feel, I might be looking to people like you or people with, whatever, hundreds of thousands of followers, content creators, not even necessarily in the gaming space, but there's people that I follow in the literal content creation space who are, and I look at their stuff and I go, this is lit more beautifully than mine, this is shot more beautifully than, they've got a better camera, they've got a better microphone, and I look at all of this and I'm kind of aspirational towards them and go, why am I there's always something you feel like you're missing, there's always something you feel like you could be doing better.
But as well, you can have the best video in the world, but what I've realised with YouTube is that if your title isn't good and your thumbnail isn't good, there's no point. Which is mad. Like you could have like a cinematic, the best thing ever created on YouTube. But if the thumbnail's bad and the title's bad, it's never going to get watched. So that's a new learning curve for me that I'm having to look at, because I'm used to just posting my content and that's that, right? You don't really worry about thumbnails and titles on short form content. So that's a whole new thing that I've got to try and explore.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, Mr. Beast is the guy to go and look at for thumbnails on YouTube. I think.
Yeah.
I don't want to add to the Mr. Beastification of YouTube, I call it, but he for someone who I initially just thought he's just a young kid who struck it lucky, and there may be an element to that. He really knows.
Oh
his
man,
stuff inside out. He really knows how that platform works, and he really knows what a good thumbnail looks like, and. I think if you look at his... I was having this conversation this morning, actually, with another creator. It's like, whatever his last thumbnail was, is like the meta for the next week, And it's everything down to, is he smiling? Can you see his whole body? Is it just part of his body? Is his mouth closed? His mouth... Because he's multivariant testing these thumbnails up to the absolute max. Colours, everything. It's a really interesting thing. So that's... Yeah, it's another... There's always another thing to learn.
That's why I think I love this space so much. Yeah. Like you're always learning, always. And I feel like I will never be done with learning. And as much as I, when I left uni and I was like, oh, that's it, I've got no more learning. I'm done with learning now. Actually, I really like it. I really enjoy learning, and the whole research, and I'm starting now that I'm doing sort of more long form stuff. I'm starting to watch videos on editing now and really starting to figure out, because that is I realize a huge gap in my wheelhouse is editing. So that is like the next thing that I need to learn how to be better at.
Well, I think that if we can get together in the summertime in a real location, I think we can make together the Peter Webby epic cinematic masterpiece. I think we can do it.
Let's do it.
So, moving slightly away from content, because again, this is something that I know you've been slightly more involved in recently, is the kind of business side of this, and this is something I know you're going to be getting your head into more as you dedicate more and more time to this. I know recently. Well, we don't have to get into the details, but I know recently you've done a couple of brand deals. You've made some connections at some decent platforms. You've been invited to different events at different platforms. What that is to me the biggest kind of smoke and mirrors area of this is like, how do you get in front of those people? How do you make those connections? And so many people that I talk to are like, oh, they just come to me and it's magic. And maybe that is the case sometimes, and I'm sure that does happen. But I'm curious as to like how much kind of effort and direction you've put into the brand side of things.
So I think some of it is a little bit of right place, right time. And I think that comes with everything, really. A lot of it is just making sure you've got the building blocks in place already, like being ready for someone to come to you and say, do you want to do this thing? The first, I think the thing that kicked it all off for me in terms of actually starting to look at sponsorships and brand deals and that kind of thing was my first event as a creator, which was Insomnia 71, which RIP Insomnia now, because that seems to have died a death, which is such a shame. Because I owe that event so much in terms for what it's done for me as a creator. That was the first time that the first time that I took myself seriously, I think, when I got that through, and that was such a huge moment of getting the email going, oh yeah, we're going to invite you as a creator to this event. Like my whole world changed then. So I think starting there and speaking to other creators and sort of seeing what they do in real life, that was like, wow, okay. And then my approach to that was, the moment I found out I was a creator, I was like, right, who's going to be there? Who's going to be at that event? And I looked at every single update there was about who was going. One of the people that was there was Andersey, the chair company, right? Now, I knew they were going, and I'd already spotted that they had partnered with a couple of creators that were roughly my size at that time as well. And I was like, and I was sat in an old IKEA office chair. My back was killing me. I was like, you know what? Let's just go for it. Sent an email. Well, first of all, sent a DM on Twitter and just said, hey, really love your chairs. Would love to do some work with you as a creator. I've noticed that you've worked with a couple of creators before. I'd love to be able to, offer some of that to you as well. Nothing. Didn't really get anything back. And then about 10 days, 2 weeks later, I got a DM back saying, hi, really glad you're interested. Send an email to this person. And because, I don't deal with that, this is the person to talk to. Wicked. So sent that person an email just with a, this is all of the, this is why I'm interested in your chairs. This is why I really like it. I've noticed you partnered with another couple of creators. I'd love to work together. And I attached my media kit to that. And this is where I think a media kit is really important because it, I think it elevates your presence as a creator as well. It shows that you're taking yourself seriously. Definitely worth investing in and definitely worth looking at. And I'm sure we can talk for a million years about where to get those media kits, through, I imagine, a link in your description we'll talk about.
I will definitely add a link to my, I think mine is recommended.
My go-to for everything graphic. So I sent the media kit alongside that as well. And that was kind of it. Again, didn't hear a response for a little while, but then got one back. And it was a lot of back and forth for about 2 months of because the replies were just so long in between, which was killing me. Like, it was like, oh God, like, have they forgotten about me? Like, what's going on? I was like, no, hold fast. And then, it got to, they were asking about my analytics. They asked for some screenshots of that because as well, there's nothing worse than I can imagine people in the past have put some inflated figures on their media kit. To then have a company say, well, can I have a screenshot of your analytics from your profile page or whatever it may be? And they're not quite what you mentioned on there. So luckily for me, I was just very honest from the get-go about what I was doing. And then, they were like, cool. What chair do you want? We'll send one out to you. It's like, okay, fine. The most expensive one looks really nice, actually. That'd be quite good. And they were like, yeah, cool. Like, go for it. And so, they, in return for their, top of the range chair, they wanted me to do a couple of videos, just sort of unboxing it and doing a review on it. And then maybe a couple of, Twitter posts here and there. And then at the event, because obviously that's the reason that I got in contact with them in the first place. Yeah. They said, just do a little bit of filming, a little bit of stuff like by our stand, and then we're all good. And that was it. Like, so, and I think a lot of it is, you need to be the one to go to them and say, this is what I can offer. Then people aren't going to come to you and say, oh, we'd love to work with you for X, Y, and Z, until you get to like big levels where your numbers just sort of speak for themselves and, companies just want to work with you in the first place. Yeah. It's about going to companies and getting those collaborations. And I would genuinely recommend this gaming chair company to anyone now, just not only because of how nice they were during that interaction, but also it's a really nice chair. Like, it's an absolute game changer. So and that's not, my contract with them I think is well over now, so that's not me as part of the deal that I had with them, but so that's good. I also would be like, you have to be picky about who you work with as well a little bit, because there's another, obviously there's quite a few gaming chair companies around as well. There's like GT Omega is one of them. Obviously Secret Labs is another one. And so like, if you want to work with a specific company, you've got to know that you want to work with that company, because you don't go for your second best option, because let's say I really wanted to work with Secret Labs, but Underseat was the easy choice. When eventually, there may be an opportunity there for me to have worked with Secret Labs, but then they see what I've posted this stuff, they go, oh, can't work with that person. So you have to put yourself in a position ready to get the deals that you want to get. Because I think there's a lot of affiliate deals that go around around the sort of content creation world, where I would argue some of them are slightly predatory. Is a strong word to use, but I think creators are putting a lot of time and effort into an affiliate link that they're not getting a very good deal out of at all. And unless you absolutely love that company and you use their products often and you go for it, I've seen people sponsor and give space to and talk about on their platforms the weirdest stuff that don't really match up with what they do as a brand as well. And I think that decreases the trust that you have with your community when you do things like that. Your community understand that you need to make money, right? If you're going to take it seriously. There has been a game that I got offered a collaboration on for a 2-hour live stream. By 45 minutes in, I knew that it wasn't happening. It wasn't working. Like I wasn't really enjoying the game. I could kind of tell that the community were kind of not really enjoying the game particularly either. But I had a contract to fulfill and I had to get through the 2 hours, right? But like in that instance, everyone kind of understood. They were like, okay, well, he's got this deal. We'll get through it, and then we'll actually, we'll probably never see this game again. You know what I mean? So, but I think that also comes down to poor planning on my part. That was me going, oh, hang on a minute. Like I think that was my first paid gaming collaboration that I had. Yeah, I was like, wicked. Yeah, let's go, do it. But I didn't do my research enough because had I done my research enough previous, then I would have known that actually the game wouldn't have worked, because potentially I could have broken trust there with the community that watch and support me. So that's a lesson learned for me, is that actually, I've then since been offered things that I've turned down because I haven't liked it. There was a drink company that sent me some samples. It was this sort of salty drink that it was like in a sachet, and you put it in, and it was like 2,000% like your intake of salt that you're meant to have in a day, but apparently scientifically that's meant to do things for you. I was like, so they sent me some samples and they were like, look, if you really like it, we'd love to partner with you, all the rest of it. And they, it's a fair sum of money. I tried it and I hated it. It was horrible, right? Honestly, it was disgusting. And I just, as much as I was like, God, I could do with the money, but I was like, no, if I start shipping this, right, and I say to people, oh, this is really good, they're going to try it and go, what is he on about? You can't I think that trust is really, really important.
I, on the other hand, have no morals, and so today's podcast is sponsored by salty energy drink. I'm joking. That's not true.
Yeah, it's you just have to you have to do stuff that works for you.
And you have. I mean, I suppose it does come down to a question of who you are, I guess. But you want to be. We talked a lot about authenticity in the last podcast, and I think that extends out into these brand deals, right? It's like, am I actually going to use this? I think I spoke to someone from a brand recently, and they said the fact that you use the product, and this leads into the Elgato thing is another prime example of that. Who wouldn't love to work with Elgato, for example? But the fact that you use the product before you approach the company, which is not always possible because sometimes it is an aspirational thing from a money
absolutely,
perspective. Yeah, there's a bunch of I've used 3 or 4 different brands in my PC build, for example, and it's like, okay, I use these products because I made the decision that I thought they were the best, and I would have no hesitation recommending them to my community, regardless of whether I'm being paid for it.
Absolutely,
And and that's always a strong position to work from. I think if you can, when you're approaching a brand, say, hey, I'm already using you. I'd love to collaborate with you. What do you think we could do together? And then going from there. I make this a final question. I'm just aware we're all you specifically are very busy, but we're all very busy. When it comes to this, comes up a lot. Working for brands for either in exchange for free products, which you've talked about, or working for brands I guess because you love the brand and you're trying to get a foot in the door. There's there's lots of creators, and I'll be honest, they tend to be bigger creators that are getting paid, that go, hey, you shouldn't do anything for free, or you shouldn't do anything in exchange for, and it's quite a privileged position to speak from. I am slightly on the other side of that, being a younger, not younger, but a smaller creator. I'm going, you know what? Actually, there's lots of brands that I love, and I would just love to get my foot in the door and have a proof of concept to say, this is the kind of thing I can do, whether I work with that brand or another brand in future. I feel like working for free products, providing that you're the one making that decision to do that, it's not a brand coming to you and saying, we want you to do this for free. I feel like that's a fine thing to do. What's your opinion on that kind of working process?
Well, here's one of the things that I really want to start being honest about and really delving into a little bit on the YouTube channel is what your time is worth, right? And what, as a creator, like how much is a sponsored post on Twitter X, like what is that worth, right? And actually that is such a taboo subject that nobody speaks about that. Nobody says, for a sponsored stream, this is how much you should be paid for it. And I think some of it might come from people being, rightly so, a little bit nervous about, revealing what they make from different things. But I want to start breaking that a little bit and talking about sponsorship deals I've had and how much I've earned from it. And that's a really scary thing to do. But I also think like the amount of value that would provide for people is is tenfold, because that's the kind of content that I would look for. Right. So, you've got to work out, I think, obviously it's all related to size, and companies want to be able to get value from you as well as the other way around. Like this, I'll take this chair deal as an example, right? For a free product of a fairly expensive chair in exchange for the time that I then gave that company in terms of promotion, all the rest of it, that was a fair exchange, I think. Yeah. There's one of the, I won't name the company, one of the affiliate programs that are out at the moment. After you sign up for them as an affiliate, there are some tasks and things that you've got to do, right? To try and to have your like code. And every day it's things like post a story about us, write something on X, post a short form TikTok video of you unboxing something. Like if you added up all of those things and how much like a company would pay to do that, like that's extortionate amounts of money. And for that company in particular, when you first start out that affiliate agreement, the deal is that you get a link and you get a 5% kickback on whatever you sell, which works out as about £1 per purchase.
Yes.
So when you think about all the effort you're putting in for £1, after PayPal probably take their fee as well, you're doing a lot of work for not a lot in return.
And I think the other thing is creating a sense of balance on your content, right? Because people know you've got to make money, but they also want to not feel like they're being sold to every 5 minutes. Very, very early when I started content creation, I was talking to a small company, and I really liked them. I really liked what they did. I really liked what they stood for. And they had an agreement, and they said, "Oh, we'll be flexible on it." But when I read it, it was the kind of expectations of what they had, and this was for an affiliate-only deal. And I didn't, for my size at the time, an affiliate-only deal was the only sensible thing for them to do.
For sure, yeah, absolutely.
But the expectations of what they contracted me to do wanted me to do. It was like, hey, this is like a post almost every day of your brand. It's not going to work. So yeah, okay, cool. Listen, I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours, and maybe we'll do another one of these.
Yeah, you know what?
Maybe
we
could do some content for your YouTube.
Yeah,
I appreciate you coming on again, and I'm just so happy to see you rocketing in terms of success, continuing to rocket and seeing some of those peaks again. I'm excited to see what you do with your long form content.
That's the exciting thing for me at the moment. That's what I want to
Yes.
really dive into. And hopefully by the next time we've had a conversation, I would have been brave enough to do a recording outside.
Well, listen, mate, if you don't do it, I'm just going to turn up where you live and start recording you out in the real world, even if you don't want it to happen, because I think that will make me go viral on TikTok.
Let's do it. Why not?
But listen, man, thanks so much for your time.
No,
and,
thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely catch up again soon.
Absolutely. Cheers. Thanks.
All right, cheers, buddy.